Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Tiny Brains podcast. I am Kevin Joyce, CEO at Tiny Brains, and with me I have Peter Graham, the Brigadier of Brains at Tiny Brains.
That I am indeed, Kev.
So, as always, we're going to run through some of the top stories from the previous week in XR, and this week was quite a big one.
Mm,
We're going to dive in with some pretty hefty news from Meta.
yeah, that's quite right. Yeah, last Monday kicked off quite surprisingly with the Meta Horizon OS news, didn't it? So this is the operating system that Quest runs on. Previously, it didn't really have a name as such. It was just known as the sort of Quest operating system. But now Meta are putting it all under one large umbrella, the Meta Horizon OS. And the major part of that news isn't the renaming or rebranding, it's the fact that it's being opened up to third-party manufacturer OEMs. So the likes of Asus and Lenovo have already been confirmed, and possibly LG, that's the only sort of outlier, are going to make headsets using the new operating system, which is quite a surprise.
Now, this is a subject that, as experienced XR professionals as we are, we could probably talk about this for, well, much longer than the length of this podcast. There are both positives and negatives here. We're going to keep it pretty brief. Now, obviously, anyone with a backseat opinion on what Meta is doing can say, look, they're trying to become the Android of VR, which is fine. I think that's a great opportunity for Meta to do. They are, as far as we know, sitting on the outside of development, they are the furthest along in creating a solid, dependable ecosystem for XR. Um, so why not Meta? What do you think Google were going to come up and do it? With Google's, you know, so far only half-baked attempts at VR, which they themselves have, committed harikari a few too many times. Um, who else was it going to be? It's got to be somebody. And Valve with Steam, it's a great idea, but they don't seem to care that much, especially not to create a unique OS for VR. So, as far as my opinion goes, this is good news in that there will be multiple headset options for using the Meta OS, a reliable, dependable ecosystem for creation and distribution of VR content. It all seems pretty positive. The catch that I have in this one, and I don't know if Pete agrees with me on this here, because we haven't really discussed this much over the last week. The catch that I can see is that if there are lots of people, lots of manufacturers creating headsets, it's fine if you're going down unique roads. For example, if you're creating a headset specifically for fitness or specifically for education and so on, those are great opportunities. But for the core audience, the people that have already got headsets or are likely to buy them in the next 12, 18, 24 months, that market is still relatively limited. So are we going to see a lot of headset manufacturers jumping on, putting out a headset, finding there is no traction, and exiting pretty quickly? That's my
Well,
worry.
that sort of brings us back to Windows mixed reality, doesn't it? In terms of Microsoft had a lot of partners to launch it back in what's 2017. There were about 6 partners, including some of these like Lenovo and Asus, and it just went nowhere. I think HP were the one headset manufacturer that pushed it a little bit further, but again, it died off. So
The was it the Samsung Odyssey? Am I remembering that correctly?
yeah,
Uh,
Odyssey was there as well.
they had a couple of generations, and that performed respectably. But again, once it was done, it was done. Samsung haven't shown any interest since. And of course, they did the Gear VR, so
That's it.
hmm.
I think most notably are the two differing opinions from the ex-Oculus Meta employees, Carmack and Lucky. Carmack is very negative about this. He thinks that the headsets will be more expensive from third-party manufacturers because Meta sells theirs at pretty much cost. So he thinks there'll just be more expensive headsets on the market, and so he doesn't think it's a good idea. Whereas Palmer thinks it's a good idea because it's something that he always envisioned for Oculus right from the start. Right for Rift, he always imagined an open operating system. So you've got two wildly different sort of viewpoints on this critical announcement from the two key insiders.
So obviously, the truth of the matter is going to lie somewhere between all of these things that we've discussed. It's going to be proof in the pudding time, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll come back a year from now and say, hey, how did this go? I can imagine there will be new headsets spring onto the market this holiday season, including our next area of discussion, which is an Xbox Quest.
Yeah. Now, don't get this too confused. This isn't Xbox making a fancy new headset like we've just mentioned with the Zeus or Lenovo. This is going to be an Xbox branded Quest. So expect a Quest in black with green highlights, I would expect.
Yes, this follows on from back in the days of the original Oculus Rift, where Oculus or Meta or whoever it was that was in charge at the time, it was Palmer Luckey on stage, I seem to recall. I was at this event and they announced their partnership with Microsoft, which included having an Xbox controller with every Rift, and also the big screen. I can't remember the technical term they used for it, but being able to play Xbox games mirror them from your Xbox to your PC into your Rift, which was complicated at the time, but it's become much less complicated, including about a month ago, 2 months ago, when Game Pass came to the Quest headsets. So this is basically just another step along that kind of partnership,
Yeah.
kind of relationship between them. I don't think it's anything huge for either Quest or Xbox. I don't think it's Xbox VR headsets or anything like that. It is just part of Microsoft's whole current strategy: play anything, anywhere, anytime. There's another outlet for that, and for Meta, it's another opportunity to catch some gamers. I wouldn't look beyond that.
Exactly. If you don't like the white Quest design, you'll have maybe a small window, because these will be limited edition, of course. You'll have a small window to buy a fancy
But
Xbox
for
design.
me, it's more to the point that there are a lot of Xbox gamers out there that are like, no, there's no VR, it's rubbish. And
Mm.
suddenly there's an Xbox branded VR headset. If you don't know about VR, you don't know about VR. It's not like, I am a sworn Android user, but I still know how to use an iOS device. Um, and it's not like that with VR. VR is still in the shadows for a lot of people, including gamers. So suddenly having an Xbox branded headset there, maybe that's an opportunity to open up a market that hadn't yet considered VR.
Exactly.
But sticking with Meta, we have some news on more Meta news because it was Meta's week last week, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Um, the Reality Labs, they've made some money and also spent a lot of it.
They have. Well, a lot of the news from the Q1 2024 revenue reports was that, they're still spending billions and they're still, not making a profit, but they did see their revenue grow. They announced 440 million in Q1 revenue, which was a 30% year-over-year increase on last year, which is, in terms of the billions that Metro are spending, is, maybe a drop in the ocean, but at least it shows there is some growth there.
We have to say as well that the billions that Meta is spending, how much of that is actually going to materialize in a product? It's still very early days for VR. A lot of it's going on R&D. Maybe we'll get a product out of this R&D in 15 years' time when Meta spending is significantly less because they've already done all the R&D.
Yeah,
It is an investment for the future for Meta. So I wouldn't be too worried about their spending. I'm not an investor in Meta. I would be more concerned about seeing their revenue grow, which they have achieved.
exactly. They've said that most of this is due to the headset Quest revenue sales. So at least at least Quest 3 is doing well, but I think it's more down to Quest 2. Would you say so? Because they have dropped their price. That it has been significantly cut over the last few months.
Yes, I would say so. And I'd also say that we have just come out of a holiday season when not only were people buying headsets, but also they would then continue to buy software. Um, and of course, this does include revenues from the store. It's not just about hardware sales.
No, no, no.
So, but that is a positive, of course. People are not just buying a headset, but they're also buying software to use on that headset, which is great.
Yeah, very good for developers. At least they might see some revenue back from all their investments.
So once again, moving on, we are sticking with Meta again.
More
It's
Meta.
the Meta show. And they have new-ish kind of maybe hardware.
Yeah, well, it's the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. Well, they really need to shorten that name. But yes, they've released some new, or they've announced they're releasing some new frames called the Skylar frames, which are designed for smaller faces. So definitely not for me because I have a big head, so and not a small face, so they won't be suitable for me. So yeah, you'll be they're available, I think, in the US and like normal like European countries and that sort of thing. So yes, some new frames available for the smart glasses, and also some new features. So they're widening the AI capabilities in the US and Canada. So it's currently in beta. They've initially announced it back in December, but they're sort of rolling out more and more AI capabilities for their smart glasses and Ray-Ban.
So my take on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, is that it is just a redesign of the hardware for smaller faces. And all the software is exactly the same as in previous editions. It's just that previous editions will be updated to catch up with this
Yeah.
rollout.
Yeah. And one of the newest features is that you'll be able to share your view when making video calls in WhatsApp and Messenger. So, you know, wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to WhatsApp someone and be able to share that glorious view of your office or maybe the beach.
The voyeuristic possibilities are endless.
Perfect.
So we're going to wrap up with a new game reveal, as we always do on a show, or a new game news of some kind. And this time it is Alien Rogue Incursion. As a big Alien fan, great stuff. Pete.
Yeah. So finishing off last week was the huge announcement. Well, but yeah, it was a huge announcement from Servius that their Alien game is coming in holiday 2024, and it'll be supporting PlayStation VR 2, PC VR headsets, and Quest 3. No
And
Quest 2
Quest 3.
mentioned. Yeah, just Quest 3. No Quest 2. So this is going to be well, in terms of Meta headsets, a Quest 3 exclusive by the sounds of it.
So we knew this Alien game was coming for quite a while, but we didn't know anything about it other than the fact that it was in development. So it's great to finally see it come out, or get its full reveal. We'll see it come out in the year. But yeah, the announcement that it is Quest free only. Now it's not the only Quest free only game so far, but it is rare. So
Yes. Yeah, Meta haven't really been pushing any Quest 3 exclusives as such yet. I know there are a couple of games that are really geared towards the newest headsets, but at the moment, Meta have managed to so far avoid too many on that front.
this also suggests to me, although I may be looking a bit too deep into this, that the Quest 3 will still be the primary headset this coming holiday season.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect a Quest 4, and if there is a Quest Pro 2 or a Quest 2 Lite or whatever else, it's not going to be the lead headset. I imagine Meta will continue to push the Quest 3 as the lead headset this coming holiday season. So if you did invest in one in, when was it, October, November last year, and you spent out full price and got your Quest 3 headset, don't worry, you've still got probably another year and a half of that being the lead headset.
I would agree with that. So it should be might be an exciting holiday season. This is the first big game to be announced for sort of the festive season as such, depending on when it comes out. We know there's a few more in the wings. There's Behemoth as well from Skydance, but we're waiting for
One
him
day.
one day. But we said the same about Alien, really, because Alien was announced in 2022, so it's been 2 years since we were waiting for some sort of information from Servius. So it's good to hear. We've still not seen any screenshots, and the teaser trailer was literally just the logo. So we still don't know what
It's
it
a
looks
nice
like.
looking logo, though.
It's a nice looking logo, and there's a
Logo.
big old alien in there. So
Yeah.
we've been most Alien fans have been having to deal with the VR mod for Alien Isolation for the last what
10
7,
years.
8 years. So it'd be nice to see an official Alien game finally arrive.
Indeed. And that's wraps up the show for this week. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. As always, if you'd like to chat to us about any of these or any other stories in VR or AR for that matter, feel free to reach out to us on any of the what 4,659 channels that you can possibly reach out to us on. I'm sure Pete is listing every single one of them in the description below.
Somewhere.
Cool. Thanks very much, everybody. See you next week.